Your way doesn't have to be right, it just has to work. Language Acquisition and Cybernetics, written by Khatzumoto, posted in October of 2010. I was just thinking today about how dirty and fluid and lazy kanji is. And I was thinking about the obnoxious certainty that anti-RTK people have about how RTK couldn't possibly work. And it hit me that it may have been this article about the differences and similarities between AI and cybernetics by a guy called Paul Pangaro, and it got me thinking in the direction of lazy kanji. For curiosity's sake, here are a couple of interesting quotes. Quote, "Information, or intelligence for that matter, is an attribute of an interaction rather than a commodity stored in a computer." End quote. This quote in particular, from Humberto Maturana's Biology of Cognition and Autopoiesis and Cognition, The Realization of the Living, really got me thinking. Quote, "Learning is not a process of accumulation of representations of the environment. It is a continuous process of transformation of behavior through continuous change in the capacity of the nervous system to synthesize it. Recall does not depend on the indefinite retention of a structural invariant that represents an entity, an idea, image, or symbol, but on the functional ability of the system to create, when certain recurrent demands are given, a behavior that satisfies the recurrent demands or that the observer would class as a reenacting of a previous one." End quote. What does it mean to know a language? What does it mean to know a kanji? It's a question of worldview, I guess. To put it a little simplistically, it's a question of whether one sees things statically or dynamically, and it's important for each of us to get somewhat clear on an answer to these questions, because that answer will decide whether life is tingly and fun or totally sucky. If one defaults to one of these certification seller-approved answers and decides that knowing a language means being able to take boring, arbitrary, authority-presuming tests on it, administered by people you neither know nor like, then that's fine too. It'll just suck. If one defaults to one of the school-approved answers and decides that quote-unquote knowing a language means doing insomnia-curing textbook assignments on it and avoiding fun bun for native by native media, like the plague, or rationing out fun bun as a reward for real learning, as if fun bun were some kind of fattening dessert instead of the nutritious vegetable dish that it is, then that too is fine. It just kind of sucks. Translated specifically into language acquisition terms, Maturana seems to be saying, you don't get good at a language, you get used to it. It's a habit, it's a relationship. It's as if the language were a person. You don't learn to read, you get used to text. You develop text reflexes. Not only is a language itself in flux, but we are in flux with respect to the language. In the late 1970s, James Heysig freed us from the stifling and ineffective ideas of what it means to know a kanji. To the extent that unquestioned, unfettered attachment to the RTK method threatens to itself become a new orthodoxy, the lazy kanji/SRS combination could be a new mini-shift in kanji perception. You don't quote-unquote know kanji, you get used to them, just like your phone number. So used to them, in fact, that you can read and write them in any situation you want or need to. Having said that, lazy kanji is actually built on the core RTK insights, namely that 1. The component logic of kanji should be exploited to learn each character bottom up, and each family of characters in order of increasing structural complexity. And 2. Each kanji represents a concept that transcends any one language, and this concept can be represented using a word or words in your native language or L1. So to me, it just represents a natural progression rather than a revolution or anything drastic like that. Heysig's always going to be the top dog in my book. He brought us so far, he broke the mold. In any case, I think the ultimate lesson is this. Screw doing things quote-unquote the right way. Your way doesn't have to be right, it just has to work. Maybe we'll add that to the 3 laws of language acquisition, smiley face.